upcoming panel that is all about the AI Scaling Plateau, navigating the limits of model expansion. Please put your hands together in a massive round of applause for our moderator, Mr. Alexander Hen, the CEO of Squared Circle Ecom. Joining him, we have Mr. Wiley Finch, the Chief Technical Officer of Unknown Data. Joining them, we have Aniket, the Data Transformational Lead at Neostats Analytics. And now, up on stage, please welcome Miss Mahima Dwivedi, the founder and CEO of Azov Business Solutions. And certainly, we have Mr. Aro Soni, the founding member of Raven AI. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Vijay Madhavan, the VP of Communication at TheoSim.
I hope we can be heard. A very warm welcome to each one of you to today's discussion. We have a topic which is, I'm sure, on everybody's mind, day in and day out in today's business world. We are going to talk about AI, in particular the AI plateau, and how to navigate limitations within model expansion. We have a very, very distinguished panel assembled here, a panel of experts, and I would like to take the opportunity for a quick introduction. My name is Alexander Hen. I'm the CEO of Squared Circle Ecom, a Bangalore-based company in India, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Good morning. We're still in the morning. Welcome, everybody. My name is Wiley Finch. I'm the CTO of Unknown Data, a company based in the Netherlands, in Europe, for those who don't know. At Unknown Data, we do everything to build responsible AI. Next to that, I'm an expert lecturer and researcher at a university in the Netherlands, which helps being on the forefront of development, being in front of all the new developments, and also being a leading part in that. And I hope to have enough time to give you a tip of everything we do in daily life.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Mahima. I am the founder and CEO of Azov Business Solutions. We are basically focusing on expansion and narrative. In expansion, we are talking about growth, scale, capital. And when it comes to narrative, we are talking about how the objective is can be fulfilled and what is the way in expression of that. AI has become a very important part of all growth and capital things, so I have witnessed it very closely. So I believe I come from a business aspect in this esteemed panel.
Hello. Can everyone hear me at the back? Am I audible? So I'm Oro. I'm actually the youngest member on this panel here. I'm 25, by the way. 2 years ago, when I came to this conference, the organizers told me that a couple of years down the line, we will include you on the panel because you are too young to join such a esteemed panel. So currently, I'm a founding partner at Raven AI. It's a new and upcoming startup backed by Y Combinator and Sequoia. We build AI agents for the process industry, and that includes things like maintenance planning, organizing the different kind of workflows that happen in manufacturing, incident reporting, and much more.
Thanks, Oro. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vijay. I work with Dr. Sam at TheoSim. I also run my own consulting firm. Very much focus on the human aspect and implications of AI. I do a lot of work with organizations, particularly multi-generational teams, and how AI is actually going to integrate and improve outputs, right? So I come mainly from that perspective, and I'm looking forward to sharing the panel's perspective and hearing from you as well. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you so much for your kind introductions. So we have a very diverse panel today where we cover multiple aspects. Our company, for example, Squared Circle, is a business user of AI applications. We have business AI development in the panel. We have AI regulation, so I'm looking very much forward to the discussion. So as recent numbers say, the global AI companies ramp up their capacity quarter over quarter by at the least 30%, if not more. And that leaves us with the question, have we not reached a point, and I would like to route that question to all panelists, have we not reached a point where expansion of model size leaves us to limitation in reasonable results? Would like to hear your thoughts. We start, ladies first, with Mahima.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Well, actually, when we are talking about AI, unfortunately, we restrict our discussion just to the kind of model that we are talking about. And there's a lot of other aspects which have to be built. The first is obviously the clear objective, that why are we using it and is it the really right technology to be used. The second part is the actual risk. What is the blast radius of mistakes? Because something as big as a frontier model, and if you incubate it in a enterprise thing, the whole impact, a negative impact, is actually systemic and not local. So the most important thing is essentially look into all of these things from the point of business, from the point of risk, from the point of objective, from the point of people who are required, and then take a decision. So right now, a lot of what has happened is hype has taken over. We are using a lot of things because somebody else is using it, rather than looking it internally and from the organization's aspect. So the risk can be actually modified, and it can be used at all levels of businesses if only we look at all of these parameters.
Thank you. Vijay, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll take one word that Mahima said was frontier. And just to give it some context, I think that we are seeing some plateauing. But the question is, what is that signaling in that plateau? So for the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of data, a lot of parameters, there's a lot of brute force. And what my opinion is, it's now moving away from that power to more context-driven. So it's got to be more contextual. So that's the great thing about the, with technology. As it hits a ceiling of one wave, it then says, where are we going next? And I believe that's the shift right now, moving towards a contextual approach. So when we think about the innovation, then it is always a redirection of the innovation. So some people say, oh, the bubble's about to burst. I think, no, it's just finding another way now, and it usually does. But I believe the real value creation now, it's about proximity. How close do you get to the point where to the value you want to create? So my opinion is that, yes, there is the plateau, but it is now heading in a different direction.
Yeah. So you would say that we will see in the coming months and years a more focused approach?
Yeah, well, I don't believe that there will be a distinct approach. What I believe is that size as well as context will begin to coexist. And it very much is, it's no longer now a technology question, it is now a value creation question.
Thank you very much. Auro?
Yeah, so I would like to share a very interesting study that Google DeepMind did on the model scaling plateau. So earlier there were some scaling laws that were referred to as the Kalpan laws of scaling. The idea was that while you are training models, you need to focus more on the model size than the data that you are training those models on. Now, the Google DeepMind team questioned this approach, and at that time there was GPT-3. What they did is that they built a new 70 billion parameter model compared against the GPT-3, which was 175 billion at that time. And what they did is that they increased the data that they were training this 70 billion model on by 20 times. So they increased the model size to the data ratio 20:1, which was just 1.7 for the case of GPT-3. Now what they observed was that even this smaller 70 billion parameter model outperformed the larger GPT-3 models. So this gave us actually a really important insight in the AI scaling, is that you need to focus more on saturating the data within the neural network that is these large language models. And that has actually fundamentally shifted the approach that companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are taking in training their models. They have saturated their model parameter size to somewhere around 200 to 300 billion parameters, and they are focusing on ingesting expert level data into their models so that they perform with really high reasoning and are able to tackle a variety of use cases.
So would you say the model size is decreasing?
No, it's not actually decreasing. I mean, if you have like very specialized workflows that you want to build on, then there are a lot of companies that are building small language models, which are somewhere around like 40 to 70 billion range. And for specialized workflows, they perform really well. But in most of the agentic workflows that you develop, you need some kind of a general understanding in the model itself. Because you have to integrate it with a lot of different kinds of tools, and that comes only with these larger models, like for example, Llama 3, Gemini, Anthropic, and OpenAI. So they are like around 200, 300 billion.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you, Auro. Wiley, what's your take on this?
Thank you, Alexander. So, first off, I want to talk a bit about what I've seen over the floor in the past 2 days, and when we talk about AI. And there's just a tip of the iceberg most of the people see and work with. So when we talk about ChatGPT, we talk about Gemini, but I think those are specific, or at least they're a specific kind of AI and products. What few people do not think of or realize is that AI has been in our lives for 50 to 60 years. We had a little discussion about your past in the 80s where we saw some form of AI, and I think that's important to know that it's been there at least for most of everybody who's present today's lives. And that brings me to the fact that we have evolved the technology-wise, and with everything in technology, at least I'm not the youngest panel member, sorry to give that title to you, Auro. I'm only 31, but I've seen technology grow over time. I have never seen technology hit a ceiling. It's just sometimes technology is not there
So
yet.
would you feel there is a trade-off with increasing model size? Will we still see sufficient performance gains, or do you see limitations coming up?
It depends. So if you look at general purpose AI, maybe we now have not the technology to be more precise, but I definitely think it's going to come there eventually. There are a few things that my fellow panel members mentioned that I really believe in, that's adding value. So I was very fortunate to start my career at an innovation lab, and one of the first lessons I got in that innovation lab was to fall in love with the problem and not with the solution. And now we have products like ChatGPT coming out, Gemini, things that make AI more approachable for the general people. And people fall in love with that new hype, the new product, and they don't think about how they can use the product or what the problem is, and then go find if that is a solution. So that's a different mindset in finding meaning, finding value in technology. And sometimes it's automation, sometimes AI, sometimes some things sound more exciting than the others. But I definitely believe we should look at the problem, making impact by solving the problem, and finding technology that suits. And sometimes we're not there yet, but I haven't seen a ceiling being hit in the technology field.
Great, wonderful. So I do agree with you. I do see that many organizations and enterprises are yet to define what their long-term goals are while using AI. Vijay, what would you advise, or how would you advise an enterprise or either to adopt a more smaller, fine-tuned model or a big, larger size of modeling?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It goes back to the point I dropped, which is the context, right? The value. So if you have a large model, obviously you've got a lot of breadth, but of course the intelligence is a little bit more shallow. And when you have a tailored model, it gives you depth. So so I call this, the real value is in the depth. So take, for example, a banking sector. And, you are dealing with customers, with SMEs, with businesses. So you would want to look at, lifetime triggers, events, the regulatory context, the risk sentiment. So a tailored model there really works because that's the real, you're getting the insights at the right time to create the value for the customer. And that will beat a large model. So it's again context, right? So that is the question I think enterprises got to ask. Where is my competitive advantage? Is it in general parameters or is it really contextual based? So where is the value created? And I believe for enterprises, that's how they will differentiate themselves. Scale is not going to be the center of gravity, and scale will not differentiate you. But your proximity to the creation of value will differentiate you going forward. Another question I think I'd like to throw out there, Alex, is that how many of you use AI to still in your HR processes of screening of resumes and stuff like that? Anyone here does that? Some hands have gone up. And you use it basically out of job descriptions, isn't it? Now, I'll tell you something, right? If you take job descriptions and put it into an AI, the AI probably can do it. So why are you hiring the talent for? So you find that what's being used is that you've put out job descriptions, young Gen Z, right? Someone like Oro will come up there, he'll figure a way to beat and show you that he's the best candidate. And now we have created another AI to detect whether the resume is written by AI. So where's the value creation in that? Isn't it better for us to think about, how do we bring back the human element into the AI? What do we want our staff, our talent to do? Not the job description. What job outcomes, what meaningful impact. So that is again aligned to what is your objective. Is it creating the value? Or are we just a large firm that is just being busy about something? Some food for thought, but I'll just throw it out there.
Absolutely, and I think that's a good question because it is not human versus AI. It is how does, where are the opportunities where AI can complement the human activity and then create value in that direction.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vijay.
Yeah, Alex, I would like to just join a point here that ultimately the value creation that you were talking about, it matters with what are we really intending to do. That is the main point where the journey starts. Now, if we are looking for something, you mentioned about the pharmaceuticals, and I come from a pharma fintech background, so I can tell you that when we are talking about risk, wherein, especially when it is about, channelizing trials for medicines, or maybe, risk assessment for lenders and everything, then the idea of having a human inbuilt along with that AI, because AI helps with pattern. I mean, we are not negating it. There are so many benefits that one can get out of AI, which is not possible by a single human mind or even sometimes a team because of the multi-pattern thing. But what is important is that we identify clearly what part of work has to be done by technology and what part we want the humans to come in. Like, for example, we can, have a document which with the pattern analysis, etc., come out with context, but ultimately the final decision can be human so that we can know whether somebody has actually tried to outsmart the system. That is where the link is. But having said that, it's easy to say on stage like this, but to actually do it in a organization with each and every workflow, that is where the real beauty is, and it needs people ultimately, especially people with understanding, deep understanding of that workflow to bring about that actual value creation that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mahima. Wiley, your thoughts?
Yeah, your thoughts. Yeah, I've seen a lot of echoing words over the past days. The same concerns arise, and I think it's a real good thing to look into the role we want AI to play in our lives, in our world. Eventually, in the end, I think AI is nothing more than a tool, a means to an end, and we as a society or world, as human beings, are the ones in control of defining where those boundaries are and where we want those boundaries to be. And boundaries, I think, are flexible in that sense because we've seen norms and values change over time. So I'm being here today and seeing what the future will have for all of us with technology. And don't get me wrong, I'm a technology guy from start, so I fall in love with every new technology very fast. And I'm just very excited to see where everything is going to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an exciting journey, and I think we are yet to find out. Yeah, thank you so much for your inputs. So back to our main topic. So we are approaching the plateau. We might have reached, we might have not reached. We are yet to find out. So the next question is for Auro. Where do you think the scaling plateau showing up first? Is it on system performance? Is it on infrastructure cost? Or is it on downstream reliability?
Yeah, so most of the firms that are creating AI agents nowadays, the plateau, first of all, comes in the downstream reliability. So let's say in our case, like we are building agents for process industries. We have certain evaluations, benchmarks that we have worked along with our customers to kind of create the baseline for our agentic performance. And the first plateau that we hit is obviously in the reliability of these agents. So to give you some numbers, like it would be 90% reliability, that would be kind of like the gold standard for AI agents nowadays. The next thing where you hit the plateau would be actually your inference cost. So in a lot of these sectors, such as in fintech particularly, you have a lot of data to ingest, and a lot of transformations that you have to do on your data. So costing would be your first plateau that you hit. It's not really the model intelligence plateau that you would hit. In very, very rare specialized cases, do we ever see that model performance is actually the issue? Most of the times, it's actually the downstream reliability of your tools, of your agentic workflow that you are hitting the plateau in.
Cool. Wow. Interesting insights, Auro. Thank you so much for sharing. The next question I would like to ask Mahima is, does bigger AI mean bigger risk? And how would you as a company evaluate what the risk factors are, if any?
Bigger AI does not necessarily mean bigger risk, but it definitely exposes to bigger risks, especially depending upon, as I have been literally harping, depending upon the work that we are talking about. And that is why, actually, that's a very wonderful point which Auro mentioned, inference cost. Because one of the more important things is that when we are actually adding such inferences, additional inferences, what ultimately benefit are we actually getting out of it? So there are, like for example, I mean, just taking a cue from Auro again, he mentioned processes. Most of these processes are, straightforward. So you can actually have a smaller model, which is contextualized to work much better than compared to the other example that I gave about, lending or pharmaceutical safety, wherein you need actually multi-diverse adverse edge cases so that you can actually have some ways to manage it. So basically make your own product ultimately more robust. So you need all those edge cases to come in. So that differentiation is one of the most critical factors that is there. And other part is definitely there is a cost aspect from the point that unit economics, because ultimately it is business. So until and unless we actually have a drawdown version of the unit in economics from the point that what revenue are we getting or anticipating, and how all of these factors come into play to ultimately make us, profitable, and not basically lead to a sunk cost, that is also an implied factor. So if there is something in which the cost is too high and there is no end to, ever achieving a profitability or getting a reasonable accuracy, especially the kind 90%, I mean, it sounds very fair, but getting 90% accuracy is no joke, especially in the, at least from what I have experienced. So that balance has to be always in mind when we are actually finalizing, upon these models.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mahima. Wiley, you are from the Netherlands, and we do understand and we see recently that Europe is at the forefront on putting some sort of regulations around development and usage of AI. Where do you see a reasonable way, a reasonable scaling from a technical and regulatory perspective?
Yeah, so one of the things we European are most known about is our innovation on regulation, especially if we look at technology. One of the things we speak of, if you look at Europe, is the digital decade coming up. So every rule set that focuses on everything that comes after 2030. And those regulations are built with human values in mind. So a lot of things I've heard over here in the past days, security, privacy, bias, making sure that technology is being used to help people grow, to add value to people's lives. Well, I'm not a regulator, but it kind of makes me feel proud that we are in the forefront of trying to protect that humanitarian values. And it's because I want to make a bridge over to the risks we were talking about. If bigger models mean bigger risks, maybe from a company, from a revenue perspective, you could say yes, but the regulations in Europe work a bit differently. So they also talk about risks, but they look at from a human side. So if you look at the risk of an AI system, it's actually what is the AI system used for? So if you look at technology, let's take an example. We use gamification technology to help people take medicine in time. I think we can all agree that it's a good use of technology, right, of AI. But that same technology can be used to make somebody addicted to bad stuff. Let's say drug abuse, let's say not coming outdoors because every cool stuff is happening on the screen and I only get recommendations from my Netflix that keeps me tied up to my subscription and my TV. So that's the difference in the way the regulation looks at it. And I think based on those use cases, you get actually obligations you need to apply to. So if you're using AI for, let's say, I'm going to borrow your example, VJ. If you would match a resume against a job description to see if somebody's fit for a job, that would classify as a high-risk system because you're actually using personal data, you're trying to match, and you're actually impacting somebody's life directly because it's, can they enter the job or not? And that's where we talk about the human factor or human oversight comes in. So you actually get obligations to not have that decision only made by AI. So I think I see a balance. I see it also coming up in the ChatGPTs, the Geminis, where they explain more now where they get the answer. They give you sources. And that transparency obligation is also something that stems from European regulation. So I'm quite happy with those coming into place. There are a few things I dislike. In Europe, we're all about data sovereignty right now. So we want people to respect European values, and that means that they have to have a European presence nowadays. So if you want to bring your AI to the European market, you actually need to have a distributor or an importer of your systems. And there is the technical plateau you're hitting, because we talked about it yesterday as well. I think Europe has built a bit of a technical debt, a bit of dependency on the US specifically, and it's something we need to try to manage and keep in mind that this is a shared responsibility when we use technology that crosses borders.
So I thank you very much, Wiley. I think we all agree that AI requires governance, requires regulation, which currently does not happen at a global level. It is more regional. My question would be, the Europeans working very hard to put some sort of regulation around AI. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage, number one? And number two, does regulation limit innovation? Vijay.
It's a very fine line to navigate. And again, it goes back to context, right? I think what Europe is doing is absolutely necessary. You do need to have a basic set of rules on how you operate. And it needs to be one that is done ethically. And that is without doubt. I think we've seen a lot of instances out there where AI not only has been abused, but misused where it's affected the livelihood of people. We take Australia as an example, where right now they've sort of limited the use of social media for young teenagers. Now, there is a reason for that, and obviously, you know, the algorithm and what you watch and how that influences will have an impact. But does it really solve the problem? No. So I think it's going to be very tricky, and it's a big challenge for a lot of regulators. As the AI evolves, how do you keep track and regulate it? And that is a very interesting challenge, right?
Yeah, definitely. If I may respond, it's in Europe we call the compliance paradox, where we want to innovate, we want to also regulate. And it's also with tech, I've seen it over years, tech comes first and then we try to regulate it, so we try to hinder the impact. And I don't think that those values are always against the opposites on a scale. And I think I've heard a lot of talk about impact, value. At the end, I think we're mostly founders and we try to make a living for ourselves, our families, for our employees. But what I've seen as I've been working, being a founder, being an entrepreneur, if you bring value, if you bring impact, people will follow. And yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it because we're all in here. Like I said, to make a living, money will follow as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think the impact is what you're talking about is the most important, right? So I mean, I could look at the Australian model and say, well, instead of you're trying to create rules that actually not work because the young kids will find ways to circumvent it. So do regulations actually address the symptom, a cause, or a behavior shift? And that's obviously the last one takes a lot of work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much in the interest of time. And I think everybody gears up for lunch already. But we would like to take the opportunity to open up for questions from the audience. Yes, please. Sir. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I'll ask the question. I'll be selfish and take the question for this panel. I just would like to all of you to give me just one sentence very briefly so we have time to take a video with the audience. And wrapping up this, just give me 3 words that you would wrap this topic up with. 3 words.
I'm going to take 4. Responsible technology for the future. Oh, that's actually 5, sorry.
Responsible technology, that is fine, we won't count that. Responsible technology for the future, very, very true.
Value, context, and ambition.
Value, context, and ambition. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would say that the application layer of AI is still very undervalued. So there is a lot of opportunity to be explored there still.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Mr. VJ.
4 words, right?
Yes.
It would be humanize AI, right? Improve the impact.
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together in a massive round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much, Mr. Alexander, for moderating this panel so beautifully. Can we take a picture and then a video with the audience? Okay, come on up. Let's take a gorgeous picture of our panelists.